What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Build Different podcast with Tucker Speed. This episode, I was joined by Parker Rose. He's a Salt Lake native, kind of a snowboard, skate kid turned motorcycle dude. He's building some really badass choppers, some early pre-70s stuff, and just has a really good eye for style and the artistic side. He also does a lot of photography, and he's just a all-around rad dude, and we had a really good conversation. I think you'll enjoy this one. Just remember, this podcast is brought to you by tuckerspeed.com, your one-stop shop for all your performance-related parts for your Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Before we get going, leave us a 5-star review, follow this podcast, keep them rolling. Thanks, guys.
Making power by day, making friends at night. Build different. Tucker Speed. Hell yeah, brother.
Just whipping it.
I think it's just an indicator that Steve's too soft. If he takes a day off and you guys think I'm hard,
Nah, man.
it means he's being too easy on
yeah.
me. I'll have a talk with him.
No, but Butler's, he's driving it, man. I don't want to get Steve killed.
No, he does good.
Yeah.
Rolling?
Yep.
All right, man. Parker,
What's up?
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, on short notice. I appreciate you running up and
No problem.
jumping on the podcast with us. I kind of want to jump into your story. You're kind of, from my understanding, pretty new to the motorcycling industry.
Yeah.
Or world, I guess. Maybe not industry. I don't know if you place yourself as in the industry or just an enthusiast. I'd be interested to hear your take on it.
Yeah.
And you do some other really cool stuff. Snowboarding stuff, skateboarding stuff. How that stuff relates to the bike stuff.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of your stuff on Instagram where, what is it, bikes and boards?
Yeah.
is kind of your thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like this guy already. I bomb in the winter, too.
Cool.
Gotta have that adrenaline.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
man. Snowboarding's the shit.
Heck yeah.
So, how new are you to the motorcycling world?
I bought my first bike in end of 2016 going to 2017.
Okay.
It was a 1996 Honda Shadow. Yeah, it's just a typical bike, kind of a funny story. That's when I got into it and have been, dabbling, building bikes, kind of customizing bikes and doing that the past, I don't know, ever since, I guess kind of backing up, I got into motorcycles by my best friend, Lars.
Okay.
We were living together, going to school up in Logan, up at Utah State.
Okay.
Living together, and one night he just was like, "Hey, dude, check this video out." It was a movie on Amazon called 6 Over, Dice Magazine. Mm-hmm. And he was a skate, Lars skated, and we were both into snowboarding. It's just what we were into. And anyway, just going through bike builders, old custom, vintage Harley choppers, chopper movie, and from then it was just like I knew I'm gonna get into this kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was thrown into. So that was kind of like my first introduction to what motorcycles, to what I'm doing with motorcycles,
Mm-hmm.
like that realm of it. That's where it stemmed from, and so started there, and man, it's kind of interesting. Lars had a bike, I didn't have, I was going to school, started saving some cash, putting it in the sock type deal. Birthday comes around, I'm like buying a bike. He had a little Virago. We found another chopped up one on KSL, drove down to Bountiful. Dude ghosts us, not hearing back from him. And then called a few buddies. We had another bike on KSL, scratched up a couple $100 from Nico and Scott, and went and picked up this other Honda. That's kind of how I bought my first bike.
Was it a chopped?
Yeah,
Shadow?
I mean, it had drag bars and maybe like a 4 over tubes on it or something like that. Like
Okay.
it wasn't a stock stance, but it wasn't like full chopper. You know,
Yeah.
it was a little $1,200 bike, you know, and so that's kind of how I got into bikes and brought it up to the house, trailered it back up with Lars up to our little spot, and you know, the next week started putting different bars on it, kind of messing around with the bolt-on stuff, and you know, we had a little shed in the back, and that's kind of like where we did all, you know, painting tanks and stuff like that, and started getting into it, and that's kind of like where this Shedcyco kind of thing was birthed, you know, with him, and we were just like, dude, we're gonna put bikes together, and this is just a fun, you know, kind of a joke between us at the time, you know what I mean? And so, yeah.
So the Shedcyco thing that's your Instagram handle.
Yeah.
Is it your only one?
I have a personal one.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You got both. And now I remember. But what, like, I guess maybe that video or the movie. I mean, it's very kind of like 60s, 70s style choppers. You know, is that really? I mean, what was it about that genre of motorcycle that attracted you?
Dude, I mean,
Was it a motorcycle? Was it the people? Or
not necessarily the people, because I feel like there's so many different people involved in motorcycles.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's more about the ability to create and have a personalized, like putting your personality into a build, you know, into a motorcycle build, that attracted me at first. And I just thought they were cool, you know, like,
yeah.
who doesn't think a chopper is a cool bike? You know, I do, you know, and
Yeah.
so I feel
There's a reason that choppers have
Yeah.
stood the test of time.
Right.
You know, they've been cool for, 100 years.
Right.
You know.
No,
So-
100%. I mean, that was my introduction to, you know, custom motorcycles specifically, you know, and I think once you start, you know, like the motorcycle bug bites, you kind of get in with whatever you can get in at the time, you know, and like for me, the first bike was a little Shadow that I ran for probably 4 or 5 months, and then sold it and started trying to flip bikes to be able to, you know, get some dough to get into the next thing. You know, I knew I wanted to get into a Harley, and Sportsters were kind of like the only thing I could afford at the time.
Right.
You know, and later that year, you know, I bought a 1984 Ironhead. It had the most badass tank on it too. It was like this like David Mann painting on the side like a mural. Anyway, that was my first Harley, and I didn't know anything about them. You know what I mean? I barely knew anything about mechanical, you know, small engines or anything, you know? And so kind of went down that route and started, you know, playing with the bolt-on, you know, kind of painting tanks and changing up the colorways and kind of going that route for the first few summers getting into motorcycles.
Is it the creative side that you enjoy the most? Just being able to just do it your way, your colors, your style, your shapes, your whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I get stoked on more of the artistic side of things, you know, like even in snowboarding, you know, seeing clips or people ride in different ways, you know, like you can't, you know, when you see style and you just, it's a tasty clip, you know, or like it gets you stoked to go out and ride with your friends or go create something, or inspires you, you know. That was kind of what it was for me, you know, and it was a creative outlet as well, you know, like I've always dabbled in trying to create things and put things together, and it was a good way for me to kind of put myself out there and try and create something from nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that whole process is what's kept me, you know, trying to progress and add to my skill sets, I guess, maybe year over year, you know what I mean? But I think also, I don't know I've ridden all types of bikes, you know, like I have Dave Christensen's old Tracker. Like that's the most fun bike I've ever been on. You know, that thing's, you can't beat that, you know?
Yeah.
But I've experienced, you know, like every bike ride's different, you know, and when you're riding, for me, the most intimate experience is riding something, a rigid bike that, just is old, smells, you can, it's just is a more intimate ride for me, you know what I mean? And I guess I enjoy that. And as year over year, as I've kind of progressed in putting one together and riding something that I've touched, and learning through, trying to have it be reliable and successfully do a run or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a better feeling on a bike than that, personally.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Do you, are those types of moments, do you have those moments whether you're snowboarding or skateboarding? Is there similar? Because, I mean, there's not a whole lot of like building a snowboard or a skate, a little bit of, but not to the same level. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, they're hard to compare because I think there's similarities within, snowboarding or skateboarding or really anything that entails self-expression. You know what I mean? Like choppers are weird, for me, it's been an interesting, lane to travel because there's not a lot of dudes putting old 60s, 70s and older bikes together. You know what I mean? There's only a handful of us. And, everybody's doing it in their own way and kind of doing it for their own, passions or whatever level they're doing it at. And, for me, I'm an enthusiast, I just really love motorcycles and building them with your friends has been a really cool piece in my life. You know what I mean? Where I think that whole journey of trying to put something, putting together your first bike is a big commitment, and I think it's a challenge that's allowed me to grow as a person too, as we're chatting, like it's influenced everybody that's come into my life too,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the power of motorcycles too.
That's what I always say.
Why they're so cool.
Yeah.
They attract so many cool people, and they're all different and they all have their own experiences and doing their own thing but it brings people together. And I think, motorcycles in general are kind of intimidating to go out and ride with people too. I think that's the same with, any sport, you kind of start by doing it for yourself or with your friends, and just starting there and kind of building a community that it's a little bit tougher to do that. You know what I mean? I've experienced that a little bit.
Yeah. And it's the motorcycling world, it's a small world, but there's a lot of different styles and genres of, you know, and, it's like, when you find a dude that just gets, like, he just operates on like the same wavelength that you do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not everybody does. I mean, some guys like motorcycling for totally different reasons than you might.
Right.
Right. And, it's weird because like you'll meet dudes or girls or whoever, and sometimes there's just like this instant connection, like you just know like the dude is like or whoever it is seeking kind of the same things that you're seeking from motorcycling.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you can go out there and find those people and make lifelong friendships.
Oh, for sure.
That with people that you never would have crossed paths with otherwise, I mean, and I'm sure that's the case with no matter what your hobby is, right? Whether it's snowboarding or knitting or crafting or whatever it is, I'm sure those, it allows you to surround yourself with like-minded people.
Right.
It's just motorcycling gets you moving. It strikes your emotions. It gets you hyped up to go ride or to do a build or whatever it is, and you find people that feel that same way, and it's cool.
Right.
Is there any other type of bike that right now you're kind of like drawn to, or is it just that right now?
No, I mean,
because you had a bike in our show a couple weeks ago, and and it's a beautiful motorcycle.
Yeah.
And really well put together.
Thank you.
I think, really, really well put together. Because I've seen, because I've been working in the industry for 15, probably close to 20 years now.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many guys who, were in the position that you were in just a few years ago where maybe they saw a magazine or an Instagram post or a movie or whatever that inspired them to want to build a bike.
Right.
And they go buy a bike, and then they find out how hard it is, and they just get so discouraged that they just give up.
Right.
And they never really kind of like push through and just figure it out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's cool that, dudes, like yourself, have figured out how to push through that kind of first hurdle of just finding out how hard it is to put a bike together.
Oh, 100%, dude.
And
Keeps you up.
for sure. I mean, it's you got to be dedicated.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And the older the bike, the harder that is.
Yeah,
I mean, you're searching for parts that are just not readily available.
100%. Luckily, I mean, I feel like Utah specifically has such a cool, there's a lot of awesome guys here in Utah that help each other out and help you get in, like I wouldn't be where I'm at right now with my own journey in motorcycles and putting bikes together without the help of so many people, like I can't tell you how many times Dave Christensen saved me, you know what I mean? With extraction and just being able to have a shop, that allows you to progress, and be able to, like window a neck or stuff like that, and move into different fab levels, like there's breaking down, I feel like there's so much to talk about in terms of riding motorcycles on one hand and then building motorcycles on the other, because that's kind of where I dabble in, is both, and I'm trying to push myself as a builder, because that's a whole process in itself, and it's hard. I think it's the hardest thing I've ever really done in terms of putting something together, and I think that's why I'm so stoked on choppers, is because when you get something to fire for the first time, like that's an awesome feeling, man. And then riding it where it's actually you can feel, everything running smooth, and doing that for your first run, like, dude, that's the best feeling you can have on a bike, you know what I mean? But going back, we skipped any other bikes that I was interested in. Is that what you? Yeah,
I mean,
Sorry, I just mind jumped.
No, that's cool. I just, is there any, other brands besides Harleys? Is there any like newer bikes?
Yeah.
Even really a lot older?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of friends that have a lot of cool bikes, and Casey, he has a little bit of everything. I've been pretty partial. I like Harley-Davidson stuff. I really like chopper. Like, that's kind of my main focus. But I'm putting together a little street tracker right now, a little race bike that Dave's just redoing some things on it, changing the colorway, kind of making it a little bit more mine.
Sure.
That's my favorite bike I've ever been on.
Really?
Like it's so fun. Like the motor is fast, you pull a wheel, it's a fun bike. It's allows you to go fast, and I don't have another bike that's that, nimble and quick. It's something that
keeps bouncing off your mic.
Sorry, let's do this side.
That might help. There we go.
Is that better?
That'll be better.
Cool. Sorry about that.
No, I remember when Dave was building that tracker, I helped him out a little bit, just pointing him in the right direction with some stuff. I built my first tracker back in, when did we build that thing?
18?
17 maybe?
17.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to say because I didn't invent the tracker.
Right.
There's just not very many people building them in Utah.
Right.
And when I built mine and raced it all over the place, went to X Games on it and stuff. Dave hit me up. He wanted to build one, and that bike's cool, dude. That bike's way cool.
It's so fun. Yeah.
I'm bummed because I always wanted Dave to build that thing and then come race with me.
Right.
And it was like every time we'd go racing, he's like, yeah, I'm going to come to this race. And then Dave's just busy.
Yeah, no, I get it.
He's got a lot going on. He's got a business and a family. And
yeah. No, life gets busy, man.
15 other motorcycles.
100%.
So it's cool that you got that bike and are keeping it.
Yeah. That one has to stay in the fam.
Sure.
What I mean? No, I road tripped. I had the opportunity to drop off a brand new BMW. It was the 1250R adventure bike. Rode it from here all the way out to Oregon. Went up through the back roads. that was a blast. Did that again on, kind of switched with my buddy. He had it was a Triumph new 120 or T120 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I've ridden some other stuff. Yeah, I've ridden kind of everything. I've had some Dynas. I've had some, you know what I mean, a little bit of everything in terms of bikes. And, I mean, I love two wheels. I like going fast. I like ripping up a canyon. Like, that's my favorite way to ride. And it's kind of morphed because building has taken over so much of my riding. Like getting a bike ready to do a run in the summer has kind of been my priority the last couple of years. And trying to learn how to put together a bike and have kind of a tasteful line and learning fab skills and learning the mechanical skills and learning how to, keep something on the road too. And that's been kind of the focus the last couple of years, is trying to ramp and progress and, learn a new motor, kind of going from a couple of years ago having Sportsters, doing Sportster choppers, and then getting into some shovel heads, and then, doing some pan heads the last 2 years. And I mean, it's continual learning, and I realize that year over year there's so much that I don't know within it, and there's new ways and smarter ways to put something together. You have to think of, what's the bike going to do at 70 miles an hour for 3 hours, or 4 hours straight in a day compared to running it around town, like, especially on a rigid bike, everything shakes loose and, things happen. So,
well, and each one you do is a challenge.
100%.
You think you've got it figured out,
dude,
and then the next bike will slap you in the face.
Well, the next day it will slap you in the face.
Sure,
that's where I'm going through with my bike, trying to dial in the tuning. And I feel like one day it's running super smooth, and the next day I'm having charging issues. You know what I mean? It's a continual chasing your tail a little bit.
Well, there's always the battle of building a bike that's like visually pleasing, versus what works out on the road. And that battle between looks and function or performance, and they're not always
fashion over, fashion and function. I've been a fashion over function guy for a long time.
I mean, you'll deal with it, some bad handling or whatever for the style.
100%.
Right?
There's some discomfort in things,
Well, I mean, rigid, as cool as it is, like,
it beats you up, man.
It's not easy to ride.
No.
Hard up, man.
Yeah.
So, but for the rigid thing for you, is it a style? Is it a looks? Is it that you feel a little more connected to the road? Like, what is it like about rigid? That you think is so cool over having rear shocks?
It doesn't make sense, No. If you're trying to explain to somebody why you're riding an old rigid bike, from the 50s, 60s, even earlier, it doesn't make sense, especially nowadays. They're expensive, and two, they're not the ideal bike to travel on, in my opinion, sure. But I do think, like, it's been a feel thing for me, like, I feel awesome. You learn to love whatever you put together, and there's a lot of soul and a lot of things in old Harleys, and they're hard to get on the road and keep on the road. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, like, I've just been so stuck on it, like, this is what I am in it, and this is what I've been stoked. This is what feeds, like, my obsession with motorcycles. I haven't felt that from maybe putting together, more of a modern bike. Like, I've had, like I said, in the past, I've had a few Dynas and a few Sportsters, a few, a little bit of everything. And I didn't get the same feeling or necessarily the same connection, like, I ride at weird times too, like.
Really?
Yeah, I like to get up early and do a little, quick mash through the canyon, do a loop through East Canyon up to Morgan and come back, or,
like a pre-work ride.
Yeah, like stuff, just get out early, do a little quick, loop, and call it good. Take some photos. I've been getting stoked on taking a lot more photos and getting into photography stuff, and or like riding I-15 at like 1 a.m. when no one's really on it. Like, that's a cool thing.
Really?
It's one of my favorite
I've never
things.
done it.
And it's those types of things that I've gotten stoked on. Because one, it kind of lets go, and you don't get to do it that often, like there's right times for, connecting with your bike and how you ride it, and like I said, I kind of shifted gears to focus on trying to get it so it'll behave and run, solid on a trip, and I think that's where it's trying to break in and doing, canyon loops or doing midway up to Midway and back. Have you ever ridden Midway back up to Guardsman? Like
I haven't done that one.
Dude, that's the coolest road in Utah.
Really?
It's a kept secret, I guess,
Where's that one at?
We'll bleep that out of the podcast.
Yeah, bleep that one out. No, it's I think that's the most fun you'll ever have on a motorcycle is go early, blitz through, especially at, when the leaves are changing, October-ish.
Because I like the Alpine Loop.
Dude, Alpine Loop's sick.
That thing is twisted up.
And
the colors in fall, man.
100%.
It's unreal.
Yeah. And so Midway, coming up Midway up to the top of Guardsman, down Big Cottonwood.
Okay. Yeah.
Best road in Utah, and it's tight and technical canyon, and I like going quick in the canyons and stuff like that. And so that's a fun one, So that's kind of, I think it's more of just the experience riding, like you can't change. There's nothing that compares to riding something like that. I ride a foot clutch, hand shift, bike, and that's a challenge too. And I think it's just more of, it keeps me alert. I don't get so, like, I have to keep, thinking what's around me and be a little bit more cautious, I guess, maybe on it. It helps me. I don't know. It's just what I guess I get stuck in. That's what I've been doing the last couple of years too. And it's trying to perfect my own style and kind of my own, forming my own, looks in it and whatnot.
So in the past couple of years, you've kind of, do you think you've spent more time building than riding?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to learn how to put something together and get something on the road the last couple of years, where I try and get a bike June, July, have something, August is when I usually try and do a little trip, and then I usually have it sold and flip to do the next one, try and get better at putting something together,
So you're trying to do one a year? Is that kind of been the
That's
going?
kind of the goal. I've kind of, done some stuff with some friends and kind of have a project going 24/7.
All the time?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I'm just always curious, like as a builder, or if like you're kind of attracted to the building process. As a kid, did you like building blocks or Legos?
Yeah, no, I didn't
really?
I wasn't into video games much. I grew up playing sports, and and that's kind of my childhood was running around doing sports.
No Lego kits or anything like that.
Like I had zero. It's funny because Lars showed me this stuff, and he was always mechanically inclined. He's such a talented dude.
Really?
Oh yeah. He does general contracting and stuff. Builds pools, houses, and stuff, and just a really talented guy. He's the one that showed me everything, and I remember trying to talk to him and see like what the heck's a starter motor and what's a starter solenoid. You know what I mean? Like that. It's funny to think that, and now me and him call each other trying to diagnose and try and make sure we get both of our bikes. He's done the same thing and building bikes and trying to get something on the road together and doing a trip together and kind of document it and having kind of a little photo, like kind of photo journal this stuff and kind of have fun trying to create things kind of like the video part stuff and snowboarding and I really like prints. I have prints of all my friends and family hanging in my house, and I think that's cool. Like that's a special thing. So that's kind of like where I've dabbled and tried to focus on staying within motorcycles, is trying to capture them and have the emotions and kind of tell stories between like building a bike, taking it on a run somewhere cool with your friends, and having that whole thing, because that's kind of been the focus of like what Shedcyco is and what it is for me. That's kind of the basis of it, is to do that and learn how to learn the skill sets on fab and paint, and I think those are those pieces of a motorcycle that I fall in love with, is when you start to learn how to do your own paint, and have like your own style of putting your own flair on paint, or even on like pipes, or making your own pipes. I think there's like certain pieces to a bike that make it the bike, and having your own take and your own flair on that is
well, and those are two
me.
things that like can totally make or break a motorcycle, like paint,
for
exhaust, like handlebars, I think, are one. Like, you
Yeah.
know, like if those things can like totally make a motorcycle or ruin it,
Right.
from like a styling standpoint, right? If you just miss the mark on whatever it is,
100%.
the rest of the bike might be beautiful, but if it has this one, you know, like maybe the colors in the paint are just not right, or the bars are just don't fit that frame or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know, you can take a really good build and I don't want to say ruin it, but you know, it can make or break the
100%.
Because I mean, I always look at bikes and it's like within the first 5 seconds is when you determine whether it's cool or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the truest judgment on the motorcycle is what you think of it when the first time you see it.
Right.
And if it's not just like a hell yes, that's badass.
Right.
If it's like you have to look at it and be like, then you've missed the mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think,
So-
I mean, go ahead. You're going to say something?
Oh, no, I mean, I definitely got some questions, but you go ahead and roll it.
Well, I was just, going back on that comment, look at your show, the show you guys just did, like that invited builder section had a little bit of everything, which is so cool. And that's what I appreciate about bikes is, and my perspective has changed over the years when I look at bikes, and especially if I go to a bike show or just looking at any build, whether it's online or in person. I like looking at them in person because you get to really see. I start to look at how people do controls and how they do mounting tabs and, how they put the bike together has kind of been my focus. And then looking at, the little intricate details and the little tchotchke stuff on it, like dressing it up or doing a little engraving on an intake mount, stuff like that. Like that's the stuff that I get really excited about, or see how creative people can get with, mounting and doing different lines within builds, but also seeing, like you have desert racing, or you have somebody putting together an FXR. That's a completely different styling. You know what I mean? Like my buddy Cameron just threw one together that's insane. It looks like a Dakar race, like the Ducati, like desert race bike style. It's like, dude, that's sick. Like that's what I like about, Harleys specifically. That's why I'm kind of been stuck on Harley stuff, is because it kind of has that culture and that background. And it just is. I like the sound. You can't. I don't know how to articulate how. And it's just what it is for me. You know what I mean?
It is what it is. I mean, there's a reason that there's more Harleys on the road in America than any other motorcycle. I mean, there's just something about it, and it's different for everybody.
Right.
And the cool thing, like with our show, it's like. There's a take on, our show wasn't just Harleys. It was intended to be a multi-brand, multi-genre moto show, right? It wasn't just a Harley show. But like take the FXR for example. Like how many different ways can you build one model? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about no other brand has that, where you could take one model, or at least nobody's doing it, right? Taking one specific model and doing choppers or whatever,
the D-rake stuff that they do with them.
Like all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
super badass stuff, and you have the same thing with old bikes,
Right.
Or new bikes. I mean, there's all kinds of different styles, and that's just part of, and it's not the only thing, but it's part of what separates Harley from everybody else.
Right. I mean, let me ask you this. I feel like there's certain trends within building and models of bikes, especially Harley, that it kind of gets played out a little bit, where you have just a typical club style bike or typical chopper or whatever it may be. Do you feel like that's a thing too?
Just like those trends that come and go.
I mean, just for those bikes, do you feel like there's certain, having it so everybody's doing the same thing with the same builds, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It does get somewhat boring. I mean, we see bikes all day, every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we see a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
All the time. And yeah, it's like everybody buys a Dyna and does their club style thing to it. You know what I mean? And it gets old.
Yeah.
At times. Every now and then you'll see one that's like, oh, that's a little bit different because of for whatever reason they, thought outside the box or whatever.
Right.
But, and those trends come and go. I've seen, there was the big, chopper craze of the early 2000s.
Like the big dog
like
stuff
the big
and
dog
whatnot.
stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And that stuff was huge. I mean, everybody was buying them and riding them, and you weren't cool unless you had one.
They stuff some big things in the big motors in those
Big
things.
motors and giant rear wheels, you
Right.
know, 300-inch rear wheels or
Freaking
tires.
raked out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just raked out. I mean, and those bikes never really did anything for me, honestly, you know. Like even back then when they were supposed to be cool.
Yeah.
And that trend died, and we had the big wheel bagger thing that kind of came and it went. Choppers have always been there. Choppers that, like I said, that's well, choppers is kind of a broad term too, right? Because
Right.
a big dog is a chopper,
Yeah.
but that's very different than what you're doing.
What do you think constitutes, like, how do you define a chopper nowadays?
I don't know, man. It's
That's
almost
that's a whole topic too, you know?
yeah, it is. It's like it's kind of like saying rock music.
Yeah.
Like it's too broad because how many subgenres of rock is there?
Right.
And how many subgenres of chopper is there anymore?
No, 100%.
Whether it's you could dice it up to like flatheads and knuckles and
Mm-hmm.
pans and then shovels and then newer motors. I mean, they're
Right.
building badass choppers with twin cams and Milwaukee 8s in them.
Oh
now.
yeah, 100%.
So yeah, it's and then you have the super stretched out 300-inch tire, super raked out
Yeah.
big dog. You
Yep.
got D-rake stuff, D-rake FXRs. I mean, is that a chopper?
Right.
Is it an FXR? Is it like, what is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot like music to me.
Right.
No,
there's a bunch of genres within it. I've realized even within like traditional choppers or like 60s style choppers, there's so many different influences and styles within that style, and
yeah,
I mean, I don't think there's rules to it, and there doesn't need to be,
there
like,
shouldn't be.
I think there's certain things that you learn work well together, and it's through trial and error through the most part.
Yeah.
Like that's been my experience. And you have certain people that you're looking to that you pull inspiration from and learn
Sure.
from, So
That's part of the beauty in it too.
Yeah,
is
100%.
drawing inspiration. I think drawing inspiration from the guys that have done it before you.
right. Well, you have to.
You're probably inspiring the next dude to do it in one way or another.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that inspiration just stays alive through everybody continuing to do it. And that's, I don't know. I think that's the way it should be.
Right.
But I don't think anybody should build the same. Like, I don't want to build the exact same motorcycle as you.
Right.
I might look at your motorcycle and be like, I really like that style of bike. I want to do one,
Right.
but I want to do it my way.
Right.
So
Well, I think that's part of the progression of when you dive into, putting your hands on your own bike. Like you start to learn. You pull from the people that inspired you, and you're learning. And it takes time, and it takes, how many bikes do you have to touch to actually try and like define your own style within a bike?
do you ever though?
Yeah, I mean,
because I feel like
change, yeah.
if you're really that passionate about it, you're constantly like, you don't want to build the same bike twice either.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, my style changes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like your style is ever evolving too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you learn, like, I've learned what I've liked in a motorcycle. Like, I feel like the last 3 bikes I've put together look the exact same. You know?
Really?
They're pretty damn close. But, I mean, they all have their one-off little things,
Sure.
like a change in the exhaust or a change in, but I think when you start to, ride the bike you put together, you know what you like, whether it's riding track, you know what suspensions or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Track riding, I mean, you can try and reinvent it, but what works well on the track is what works well.
Yeah.
And so you always kind of fall back to that
Right.
default, whatever it is,
Right.
Choppers, you're a little more free on that side.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, I pull a lot from, I look at a lot of like Japanese builders.
Yeah. Those dudes are.
Dude, they're at a whole nother level. It's the sick. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of cool people out there that put together really cool bikes and have their own flair with it, which is, I think that's the coolest part about this side of motorcycles, which, I've fallen into. And I think, like, the ability to have mixed, showing different sides. This is like why I think shows and doing more community stuff where it shows the different, angles where you can put like, Baja, just like the, Shook Soda dude, that had the FXR, that was a dirt bike FXR or whatever. It's so cool having different things where you can have and be introduced to riding different bikes and taking bikes that probably shouldn't be going off, in the desert, wherever they should go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you haven't taken a motorcycle off in dirt road and taken back roads on road tires, like that's a fun thing to do.
It's scary.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it gives you like
it's the
a whole nother perspective on riding too,
Sure.
Like, I don't know. I think that's just been my experience. Like, these are the things that I've kind of fallen into where you learn. I really like riding motorcycles on canyon roads with, a few homies and just ripping as, hard into a corner or whatever. And like, that's what the type of riding, having kind of a tight, narrow stance and stuff like that. Like, that's what shaped, what I think is cool in a motorcycle and what type of stance I'm, trying to curate and stuff like that,
Yeah. Yeah. What do you got, Jay?
Now, so when you get to your, when you pick your platform,
Yeah.
and you bring it back to your garage, what is one of your strengths of you looking forward to when you're breaking that bike down, or whether it's disassembling or assembling, what's a strength? And then on the flip of that, what do you really dislike about that about a process of breaking down or putting a motorcycle back together?
Oh, man. I mean, the last two builds, I've started with a motor and a seat, and kind of built, butt seats. He's a man. He does some awesome seats. Same with Gwen. She's local, Black Stitch. She's so amazing. She does some really cool seats. Those are the seats. I think there's key components to a bike. When I start to build, I kind of have an idea because I know what stance I like. Like, I kind of like a slammed narrow bike. Just personally, I feel the best riding something like that, or feel like, kind of just feel yourself on a bike. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like a real simple form of motorcycle.
Yeah, it's as stripped down as it can get.
Yeah.
And I think starting, I've been trying to push myself in the fab areas and try and learn the new welding and new blending, blending metal and metal shaping, and learning how to use, just different tools, actually having a feel with your tools. I build out of my garage and I have just a table, a jig and like a flap disc, for the most part, some old welder. So I have to get pretty creative when I'm putting together parts, and I've been trying to learn how to do my own controls and making, like your own one-off little parts, because I feel like that's, something that I've enjoyed, that's pushed me, but also gives a little bit of personality and flair to a one-off bike type deal. You know what I mean? So I think the strengths is kind of having an idea on putting together, your stance and having something that will kind of flow nice together, kind of having nice lines. And then, the toughest part that I've been getting constantly challenging myself with is, actually the tuning processes and making sure, like you buy an old 52 panhead motor from a friend that said it was rebuilt by this shop or by this and this, and when you really slap it to, put it in, you start your bike, something, pops up and you have an issue and you're like, man, I should have taken the time to go through the whole top, even if, you can't trust what was, told, or people just don't know, you know what I mean? And it's just an old motor, it's a 70-something-year-old motor, you know what I mean? So I've been learning to take the time to, like, go through and make sure everything is at spec and following, specific, shimming, the things that need to be shimmed, and taking your time to really go through each, installation and making sure parts are working, or learning how to diagnose it if it's not, because I think ultimately that's the key is, somebody that's worked on a bike and somebody that hasn't,
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, every year it's a constant, one thing I'm learning something new, and one thing comes a little bit easier, like being able to start to have something that flows together, I feel like I've kind of been developing what I like, and what I feel, a little bit more proud and the progression of putting something that's a little bit more smooth, with pipes. Like that's something I've been really stoked on making over the last couple builds, and making your own thing from scratch or just scratch parts, like that's a whole other level of motorcycle building and riding, something that you created from stock bar. Like I've enjoyed that, and it's been a little bit more special for me, you know what I mean?
Right.
And getting it down the road, I think the tuning part is the piece that I'm constantly learning and trying to get better at.
Right. Are you doing so are you breaking down the motors then now, like when you get them?
Yeah, I mean, that's
inspecting and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying, like you take what you can, I right now I'm full. That's part of the process moving forward. That's for sure. Not trusting that this motor is just good, even if you're told it was good came out of a running bike or whatever.
Right.
That's always what you're told when you're sold something,
for
right?
sure. It ran great yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
And sometimes it's hard with that old stuff because maybe it did.
Yeah, 100%, man.
You know what I mean? I think the more time you spend with that old stuff, you start to realize that like the thing could have ran great yesterday and today it doesn't.
It changes so much. They're temperamental.
That very much. So, part of the challenge is, like you said, just keeping them running.
Right. It's that process of that too. Like that's the whole thing, I think.
So when you jump into a build, do you draw out anything? Do you sketch your idea, or are you just kind of like you said, you started with a motor, right? A motor and a seat.
Yep.
You just start putting pieces around it, and then it is what it is, or like you have an idea in your head.
Yeah, I've been collecting. So I collect parts. Like I really like just a stock horseshoe oil bag. So I find an oil bag. I like the little Wassel tanks. Just mid tunnel. That's kind of that's the tank I like the most, man. So I kind of have parts that I know I like. And so I collect parts, tin set. Choppers are easy. It's 3-piece. You have your front end, frame, tank, and a fender. A strut. Like there's not a whole lot to them.
Yeah.
Like you start breaking these things down, they're pretty simple. Like it just takes a little bit of dedication and some time. People give up on themselves too early. And for me, I start with an idea, but I don't necessarily write anything down. I stare at these things for out. I'll sit and stare in my garage and stare at it until I start to see something, trying to figure out line, I want to get into molding and learn how to shape things a little bit more and do kind of the subtle stuff, like the subtle, frame modifications or tank modifications, stuff like that. That's what's interesting, and like I think those things make it fun for me, know, and that's like where I want to kind of develop my own little flair and like, that was his take on putting something together type. That's what motivates me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Starting with that and then, piecing a roller together, throwing frame, wheels, front end, and then going from there. You know what I mean?
So your current bike that you have now, you said is it a 52?
Yeah,
pan?
52 FL.
Okay.
Yeah.
Transmission, same year? Mismatched year?
Yeah, I think it's mismatched. I don't think it's the same year.
Match.
Yeah, no. Just
of the same era though?
Yeah, it's early, panhead transmission.
Yeah. What do you have a motor in mind now that you want to do next?
Dude, I mean, I have my dream bike.
What is, if you don't mind sharing it?
It's my panhead. Like that's.
Oh, so you have
like
you
that,
have it. That is the dream bike.
I don't know. I mean, I can't afford a knucklehead, that's for sure. God bless. Nor do I have the capability. I think there's levels, that you learn to kind of progress into. For me.
But I mean, I would say that's the next level for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I feel like they're pretty much the same as early panheads. I don't know. They're a little different, obviously.
They're a little,
head, but
yeah. You know what I really want to do, and I don't do much chopper stuff.
Yeah.
I wish I could, but I just so wrapped up in what we do here. But I really just think it'd be cool. Because for a long time I thought, like a pan or a knuckle would be cool, but like an early big twin flathead.
Yeah.
I've seen a few builds, using an early like
Yeah.
an 80-inch flathead, and I just they've kind of have in my mind become cooler even than the knuckle
Yeah, 100%.
for whatever reason. You know what I mean? It's older technology. It's not as good of a motor as the knuckle, right? I mean, back in the day, the knuckle, you know, the flathead went away because they figured out how to put the valves on top of the heads instead of on the side, you know?
No, for sure.
And, but there's just still something cool to me about, you know, and it would have to be a big twin because, I mean, they made the 45-inch for, they made so many of those. And you can find them you could probably jump on KSL right now and find a 45-inch flathead.
Yeah.
But to find a big twin,
they're hard.
You'd have to hunt for it, and you would pay for it, just like a knuckle. I don't know if they're quite bringing knuckle money.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it's hard to find anything
For sure.
pre-70s, you know what I mean?
for sure. So, but yeah, flathead. Like if I was gonna build like an old chopper,
Yeah.
that would be my right. It's my dream chopper right now.
Right.
But I just think they're cool.
No, they're 100% cool.
But
Yeah, that's way rad.
yeah, that's where I'd go.
Yeah.
You got one, Jay?
I mean, I've always been a fan of the knuckle, but like you say, can't afford them things.
I know,
Yeah,
man. It's
yeah.
crazy money, huh?
They're hard to find too,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well, and that's why they're expensive, right?
Right.
I mean,
no,
it's like, I mean, the knuckle is, it's creeping on a 100-year-old motor.
Yeah.
right.
I think Willie G's I think he's got that 36, that black and white. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen that?
Yeah.
Dude, that thing is
Pretty sure that's
So-
the first year of them too.
Yeah.
so
yeah.
immaculate and nice, man. And
Yeah.
we were down there at the museum. This was, I think, around 2016. I think they had like a tribute for old Willie G. And
Uh-huh.
that thing was like right center when you come into the museum. And it was just, I was just sitting there just for, I think, hours, man. Just kind of just staring at that thing, man, because it was
Yeah.
just beautiful.
No,
But,
they're cool bikes.
Yeah.
Well, and there's something to be appreciated too, because I mean, I don't know how you feel. Choppers are badass.
Yeah.
But there's also something really cool about like a 100% correct like 36, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that bike's worth
100%.
that's so much money.
Six-figure bike, in
Yeah,
my
for
opinion.
sure.
That's what it'd go for.
It really would, especially a 36,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
Being first year, like if it was all correct, it's
Right.
definitely six figures.
Yeah,
But there's something cool about them as well.
100%. You know,
Even though it's stock,
no,
you know, it's an 80, 90-year-old stock motorcycle.
no, that it's there's a whole lane for that, you know. And,
For sure.
And the reality is everybody nerds out at certain levels, you know, as they progress in whatever they're getting into.
Yeah.
You know, like old Harley, you know, people nerd out over all of it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think it comes with the progression of getting your hands dirty with them, you know what I mean? And there's people that are diehard, you know, putting together period correct, same year bikes. That's hard to do, but it makes them worth, you know, a lot of money.
Well, yeah, it makes them worth it.
Yeah,
You know, that's
100%.
why they're, you
Yeah.
know, and I mean, I would say, like, if you were going to start a build today,
Right.
and if you were going to build, a 50s or 60s style chopper,
Yeah.
or you were going to build, say a 52 panhead, but you were going to build it
Right.
100%
Period
original,
Yeah.
that's a harder task.
Oh, it's insanely hard. I don't know how
The chopper allows you some freedom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
it can still be period correct using parts that were available from the 50s, but
Right.
there's a little bit of flexibility. Like if you're going original, like
having matching number,
matching
everything,
numbers, matching everything,
I
like
think that's the top. I think that's the top
it
tier
doesn't
goal
get any,
within it. You know,
for
what I
sure,
mean?
man. Those
You know,
and that's not a build you even do in a year.
no,
Because you're going to be
it takes a long time to
probably
do that.
I mean, a decade.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure there's guys that could probably do it sooner. Guys that are connected,
Yeah.
know where there's parts at or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, like if you or I wanted to do that right now, like there'd be
it's-
so much time in hunting down parts
I don't-
and saving up for them. You know
I
what
don't
mean?
know how it's out of my
wild. Yeah.
out of my mental scape. That's for sure.
But choppers are still cool.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this side of things too where, you know, like getting out and riding them, you know, like people build a lot of chopper. And I don't know. I think everybody has whatever degree that they can do things. But I see a lot of things where people put bikes together and they don't put them on the road as much. You know what I mean? I mean, that's partially because it takes a lot to get them to run on the road good too and keep them
Yeah.
on the road. You know, and I think that's a piece that, like, that's the main point where I want to get into is trying to figure out how to keep things like that going and taking them on these trips, you know what I mean? And take them, you know, to a new place, you know, year over year. And that's the main focus on where motorcycles reside for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you have any, kind of on that same topic, do you have any like planned rides or like events, or, you know, say they have, it just slipped my mind. I was just thinking of it. The ride where they ride the old bikes like across the country.
I know what you're talking about. My buddy Landon did that one year.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that the Cannonball? Is that where
That is the
Cannonball?
Cannonball,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff's really old stuff.
They have to do it has to be older than a certain year too.
Yeah, it's older
It's
than
early,
60s.
early.
It's
Yeah.
like, I think pre-war, like or like 42 and earlier type stuff.
Right.
Is there any? I mean, you ever thought about any of that?
Yeah, you know, like,
Or is it more for you just like a couple buddies,
it's always been kind of a couple buddies thing.
like ripping up the canyon, or maybe riding down south, having a camp out kind of thing?
I mean, this August I'm trying to blitz out and do Washington coast.
Okay.
Want to shoot some photos out there and kind of have some projects that I'm working on out there with that. You know, riding a coast, you know, I did Oregon last year on my bike. Did it on that 51 Pan, and that was that was the coolest motorcycle experience I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you put so much into like putting an old bike to run, you know, get it running.
Yeah.
You know, even just down your neighborhood, you're stoked, you know. And then taking it somewhere and riding, you know, I love Oregon. Oregon's, if I could live there, that's where I'm going, man. Like, that's the dream. And it was just a surreal experience, you know. I don't know if it's just the greenery and just, you know, kind of misty, moody. Like, I'm into that kind of stuff,
Really?
you know. Like, I get stoked on that kind of stuff. And it's just what it is, you know. And it was a cool experience riding something like that, you know, down those roads. And, you know, that's what makes me want to do that you know, find a new spot like that, or you know, kind of see other states and other, you know, places and meet new people and, you know, connect and kind of, you know, collaborate and try and, you know, network that way. I think that's like kind of the next level of bikes for me is, you know, learning how to put something together that you're proud of and you know, furthering your skill sets and your eye for design and just putting together a good looking bike, but taking it on a trip and meeting new people and, you know, kind of connecting that way and kind of storytelling with, you know, photography and backing into it that way, you know.
Yeah.
That's the main thing going forward.
I think there's you know, we have kind of experienced a lot of that just through traveling through to events or races. And you start to develop these friendships around the country with people that you would normally, like, you know, we have I've got friends all over the place that I never would have had. And, you know, if I go to an event next weekend in Tennessee, there's going to be 10 friends there from wherever, you know what I mean? And we get to hang out, and it's like you hang out for a couple of days, like you've been lifelong buddies. Right. And then you head home and you start all over and you go to another event, you catch up with them in another year. And
you pick up where you left off. Yeah. You know, that's the cool thing.
And it's kind of that same thing. The more you do it, the more you kind of network just, you know, friends. And it also helps like your project, because then, you know, you have a buddy over here and maybe he's got a line on this part or that part. Or
100%.
You know what I mean? It just grows like that.
Well, the road provides too, you know?
Yeah.
I've experienced that 100%, you know?
Yeah.
Things happen. And
you know, you run into some old boy in an old town or whatever who's might have a pile of parts, you know, just crazy stories like that.
100%.
You just run into, you can't, you know, you can't buy those experiences.
No.
You just got to get out there and do it.
That's the biggest thing. I think having that jump or having that one person, you know, say, hey, we're going to do this. Yeah. That's the hard part. I feel like a lot of people want to do these types of things and just don't have that push or have that, you know, like
kind of make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, when it boils down to anything, it's what you do with it, you know, and doing what you like with it, you know, and that's what I think on all realms of bikes boils down to. You either get out and ride or you don't, you know what I mean? Or you take a picture in your garage or whatever, you know, there's there's no right way of doing any of it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
from my experience, it's, you know, you figure out what you like, and you're going to connect at some level. You know what I mean? Whether it's just being out of respect and just saying, you know, it doesn't mean I have to be stoked on, you know, the most dressed up bagger or whatever, you know, like, I know a cool bike and appreciate someone getting stoked on their bike, you know, like that's the whole point of it,
right?
You know, is that whole thing. We don't need to have like the cool guy mentality or anything like that, you know, like that's why I like to try and do kind of like a little treat run, you know, to every month or so, or, you know, get together and go out and just mash around town, go grab a bite or a little, you know, ice cream or something or whatever. And, you know, like every July we do one meet at the bottom of Big Cottonwood and mash up to Heber, and it's chaos, you know.
Really?
Dude, it's so fun because, I mean, you have a bunch of people come out of all everything, you know. I've had like 50 bikes show up into that little parking lot. That's quite a bit of bikes mashing
That's
up.
a pretty good group.
Yeah, and I'm like,
when is this?
usually in July, first week of July. The last couple of years we've been doing it just for fun, you know, just like, hey, we're meeting here at 7 p.m. We're going to mash and grab a, you know, a little bite and get out, get into the canyon, you know, and be safe, you know. And
sure. That's kind of been the idea, like behind our bike night or our ride out.
When we got to do a ride,
we
got to get our ride out going, man.
Yeah. We haven't done one yet this year.
I mean, it's tough. You know?
This year so far has been...
It's been busy.
Yeah. But that's kind of the idea. You know, we started them last year.
Yeah.
They're fun,
We're doing
man.
one a month. And it's just like show up here at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Whoever shows is here, and we pick a destination, and we just, you know, blast up the canyon and hit the, you know, the little restaurant or bar or whatever, wherever we're going, and everybody stops there and grab a bite to eat and socialize and hang out and check out everybody's bikes or whatever.
I feel like that's what makes it, you know, like
for sure. It's
what makes community here.
It does.
And I feel like Salt Lake kind of lacks that a little bit sometimes.
Really?
I mean, I think it's been growing. Like I look at like the Hive crew and those dudes freaking killing it. It's so cool. You know, I get stoked on that kind of stuff. You know, I think we need it.
I mean, it just goes to you know, show. I mean, those dudes are doing their style.
Yeah.
They're building their style of motorcycle and doing what they enjoy doing on their bikes.
Yeah.
And it's good for everybody. It's good for the entire riding community.
Right.
You know, it may not be your favorite thing to do.
No, but I mean,
but it's still cool, and it's part of it, and it brings people together. And
100%.
And
it's healthy. You know, we need it.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
I appreciate that kind of stuff.
So, you know, we need that. You know, the community needs everything. You know, if we all rode the same motorcycle and liked to do the same things, it'd be kind of boring.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. You need some diversity in the thing, in the mix. You know.
You got any other questions on bike building?
How many bikes do you have total?
I only have two. I have
two right now.
Yeah, the Pan and my little tracker.
Gotcha.
Those are my two personals. And
do you plan on actually running that tracker, like going to like four corners and widen yourself up like this guy?
I mean, no.
You ever gonna flat track it, or are you gonna just street track it?
I had a flat track, and I'd take it to this little dirt, you know, gravel parking lot and just practice oval turning. You know what I mean? It's just fun, you know, like. When you get sideways on a bike, like that's a thing, man. Yeah. You know, it'll make you pucker. It made me pucker. You know, like for sure. You know, if you say it doesn't, you're lying, dude. Don't lie. You know,
it's an adrenaline rush.
It is, dude, and it's
so
tough.
much fun.
It's tough, and it's cool. And you know, like I plan on just rip. Like my goal is just to have it as like my daily and just rip.
Really,
you know, like
street because he built it like not street legal.
No, man. I put a charging system in it. You know, I'm putting some lights and whatnot.
I talked him out of taking the charging system out.
That's it's all good.
It's great for racing.
Dude, it was so fast. It's the fastest bike I've been on, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to get better at like pulling a wheelie up and stuff like that. You know, that thing goes, you know, and it's just, it's one of those, you can kind of hop around and it feels like a dirt bike, you know, like an overpowered dirt bike, you know? And so
kind of what it is.
Yeah. I have some projects that I want to, you know, use it on and do some stuff with my homie Paul, you know, Chinatown Paul. I've been making some stuff with him. He's a G, just awesome dude. Such a creative guy, awesome eye for you know, videography. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been turning into like my you know, building stuff for projects and doing stuff with like-minded people and kind kind of creating that way. Like that's where my attention and like my draw is right now is going that way with different builds too. You know, like I want to do this tracker that's kind of has some chopper flair to it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm a chopper guy, you know, for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of the realm I've stuck to and whatnot. But bleeding into like, you know, taking into like dirt, you know, like doing swing arm city out that way and ripping like a tracker out there, stuff like that. Like I think it's cool. You know, I see a lot of that kind of stuff and get stoked and inspired by that, you know.
You should race that tracker.
Dude, I mean, I would be down. I'm sure I'd get
4 cornered up, man.
You know, I'm sure I'd get eaten up, but
I mean, it's really early to say, but one of the conversations we're having about next year's Twobit is a flat track race.
bro, if you do it next year, I'd 100%.
We're gonna do that at.
I'm in it.
Like I said, it's early.
Would you do it with different classes too? You know what I mean? Or you just do like full race bike only?
No, we would just do. I mean, there would for sure be like a run if we do it, and I'll emphasize the if. There would definitely be like even a run what you brung class. You know what I mean? Like just show up on your chopper, your bagger.
Oh yeah.
Or a like a tracker.
Straight up.
For sure. I have a buddy Ken who does flat track events.
Sick.
And if we do it, we'll probably partner with him because he knows how to put on a flat track race, right? He knows how to do the logistics of doing that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, we would do that. It'd be cool to see.
It'd be amazing.
I mean, I'd love to see that, Ogden built tracker.
Yeah, dude, I would race it in a heartbeat. Like it's.
I was bummed that I never got Dave out to one of the races on that thing.
I know.
But
no, it was a cool build. I had to get rid of the red, it was a little too red for me. But
it was a lot of red.
It was a lot of red. It still has the red on the case. And
ain't nothing wrong with red now.
Yeah. No, there's
until
nothing
it's
wrong
too
with
much of it.
Yeah. I don't know.
So how old are you? I'm just curious.
32.
Okay.
Yeah, so
still kind of young.
Yeah, I'm kind of
young.
There,
young.
Yeah, still learning, still young in it, just kind of trying to navigate the best that you can and work with what you got, and the next little bit for me is kind of focusing on building the space and getting an update on, like tools and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's part of the next level of putting things together and learning and growing within this space.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, just so people know, this is not, I mean, you don't,
no.
It's not what you do for a living.
No, it's creative, it's a passion project.
It's just passion stuff.
It's pure.
You have a day job.
Yep.
And, this is what you do on the weekends, at night,
it's
early mornings.
It's the obsession, man.
Yeah.
It's just pure, I'm just passionate about motorcycles and creating things. And
yeah, I'm so envious of that anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you work in it. It's everything every day, like.
I don't want to say I had because it makes it sound like I'm not passionate anymore, but being in it all day, every day kind of makes it hard to keep the passion, burning.
Yeah.
This drive aspect, man, because you're already worn out from the day.
Well,
and then when it comes to night, I think one of the first things you're kind of looking at, I need to get away from this, decompress, and sometimes you put your project aside because you've seen it all day, man. You're just like, I think that's the hardest part of getting the motivation.
Because you're a little newer into the industry. I mean, you were, you were in the Air Force, and then your passion was working on your bikes and riding them when you weren't working, right? And then you transitioned into working on them, and it, your outlook on, you don't have those feelings of, sitting in the garage on a Saturday morning and just tinkering on your stuff. Like, it's just not the same anymore.
Right. Yeah, it kind of. I mean, it's a full job.
It's work, and so we have to find new ways to keep the passion alive.
Yeah.
And I just hear your story. I mean, honestly, man, like, part of this podcast project for me is getting to talk to people like you that are still passionate. Yeah. And then that passion kind of bleeds over, and it keeps me, it reminds me that I'm still passionate about it because it's hard. I lose it sometimes during the day,
Yeah.
I mean, he made a good point. Like you flashed something back to me that I've stopped doing.
Right.
And it was taking the long way into work.
Right, man.
Like what I would do is, no kidding, I would go up the divide, around Pineview, hit Trappers,
Yeah,
come back
man.
around, and then right into, Ogden and here into work.
Right.
But like,
It's coming up 12.
yeah, but I haven't done that in a minute. It's
Yeah.
like okay, I'm just going to take the quickest way to work, and now you're just like, okay, I need to get that back of getting
Yeah.
up. I mean, I already get up earlier, but like no kidding, leave work,
Yeah.
do an hour rip, enjoy what I'm doing,
Right.
maybe get the mind straight, get it clear.
Yeah, it's not an
And
every
bam,
single time thing.
you know?
Like, you
So
prioritize it a little bit,
it's good to have these.
So
things.
yeah, I just, like I said, I envy that passion.
Yeah.
Because I have it, but it just gets lost
Right.
sometimes. Like
What do you think the passion's like driven from though? Is it coming from like a creating standpoint? Is that what fuels the fire type deal, or you know what I mean? Like when you're doing things that you have to do, just you have to do an install or a service job or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that stuff
Maintenance
just,
and
like,
and it kind of burns you out a little bit just because it's the
totally.
monotonous. You don't get to necessarily put your whatever you want to do.
no, in that daily grind that we do here, that's what we're doing. I mean, even with some of the cool stuff that we're
Yeah.
doing, it becomes, we're building hot rod motors, and then
Right.
for a long time, and even still, like I'm very passionate about dyno tuning.
Yeah, you guys are a specialty shop. In my
That's
opinion,
what we do, and I put a lot of time and work and learning about it and researching it and experimenting, and I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Because I'm passionate about it still.
Right.
I still push myself on the fab side.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You look at innovating like the oil tank game, you know what I mean, for race bikes.
Yeah.
I look at the one that you did on Casey's bike, dude. It's next level.
Yeah. So
it's really
that
cool,
was a
high-level
fun
stuff.
Like I told Casey straight up, like if I had to charge you
Yeah.
for how much time I was into that project, it'd be a $10,000 oil tank.
Me and him talking about this all the time, of how much time we put into a project or
Yeah.
a build, and it's just like you're never getting that. You
for
can't
sure.
put a price on that. You know what I mean?
But like when he came to me with that idea and that project, I was like,
Such a cool.
I was like, I have an idea, like,
yeah,
and he was cool enough to kind of just let me run with it
yeah.
and allow me to just
100%.
do my thing, and kind of trusted that
Well, that's out of
it would
respect
work.
too. Yeah, 100%.
And he just kind of said, love it, do your thing.
Yeah.
Let me know when it's ready. And it took like 3 times longer than what I thought it was going to.
Yeah,
And he was super cool and patient with it.
that's the best.
But he was like, this is exactly what I wanted for the bike, and it turned out exactly how he wanted it. And
Yeah.
I hated it.
Really?
I told him straight up, like,
Dude,
I think the idea is good, but I mean, you're learning these fab skills, and every time you're doing it, you're like, oh, I wish it could have just been a little cleaner, a little smoother, a little this, a little that.
I think that's a forever thing you'll always say to yourself. I say that to myself every single time I do something. I'm like, dang, dude, that was not as smooth as it should have been. Or like I cut, doing Bondo. I did Bondo for the first time this winter, the last stuff. And that sucks, man. If you ever done Bondo work, God bless you, man.
Yeah.
Like, I hated it.
Yeah.
But it was something that was, like, it's part of it. It's part of the progression of it. And
it's just another skill set to put in your back pocket.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
you learn the right, how to do things a little bit easier the next time. And
yeah, for sure. And
continual.
And, I've done the same thing, and I stay passionate about always trying to learn a new skill, whether it be, turning something down on the lathe or, welding. I bought a bunch of sheet metal tools.
Oh, really?
To try and start shaping some stuff, and that honestly,
or like a tank or something.
Yeah, man. I've messed around with some stuff, dude, and of all the things I've messed around with, I think that metal shaping has kicked my ass the most. I have not quite figured anything out.
Yeah, I'm not.
There's some wizardry stuff going on,
dude.
To take a flat sheet of steel,
dude. People are like the level of building now. The level of just motorcycles in general. The level of performance builds coming out. The level of street riding. I get stoked on seeing like all the what's his name, Sea Bear and stuff like that. Like I see a lot of cool stunt riding. I see a lot of people just ripping. The level of motorcycle, just the level of everything nowadays. And I don't know if it's just because the internet exploded and social media has allowed you to see and share so much, and seeing, where back then it was a lot of print and digital stuff or whatever, you know what I mean?
The inspiration stuff just trickled out slower.
Yeah.
Where right now you do something and you could inspire 10,000 people overnight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No.
So it's just like everything has been amped up.
Yeah. And I think that comes from just, people just sharing stuff, and putting themselves out there and not caring so much. That's a hard thing to do. I see that even just like podcast stuff. Like that's why it's so cool to have, the conversations, or at least start the conversations and get things going,
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to see, like, for me, I'm constantly trying to learn how to, tune, just the little things on putting things together and having, I look up at old forums and stuff like that. I think it'd be cool to have conversations and having podcasts that talk about, like, diagnosing or like even roads, like stories on roadside fixes, if you've road tripped, and I'm talking like over a 3-day road trip, not just like your typical weekend, one night, I'm going Friday to Saturday or Friday to Sunday, like be a couple days on the road type, road trip. That's a whole different level of being on the road, in my opinion. There's a change, and there's a, learning how to do that and having, what to bring, what are the things that typically kind of go wrong on the road, what things, like that stuff's what's intriguing, and learning how to navigate that kind of stuff and diagnose or get something that goes down and get it back on the road type situations. You ever had any of those type of things happen to you?
Oh,
I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, all kinds of, crazy
rigging and stuff.
And on that same thing, we've done a lot of trackside.
Yeah, I'm sure even at the track, yeah.
Just, breaking stuff at the racetrack, and you don't have parts or whatever.
I'm curious what the best or like roadside fix or like trackside fix you've had. Like what's the most?
Oh man, trying to think of a good one. I
would think that snap shock, that we snap that bolt, like you said, you talk about extraction, actually extracting that thing out then trying to get
on
it
the side.
In Vegas, Vegas,
yeah.
right?
So I'll tell the story.
Yeah, let me hear it.
So we went. Well, my buddy's scooter. From
scooter.
Salt Lake. I built him a flat track bike.
Yeah,
back
I know.
in. That would have been
Was that?
It would have been the summer or the winter of 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Right before COVID, and we were working on the project, and then we were going to go. There was a flat track race at the Mint in Prim, just outside of Vegas.
Okay.
And we talked Scooter into racing that race. We're like, but at that point, like it was like a week before. We're like, dude, we should get your bike put together, because it was a bare frame at that point.
Oh,
we're
really?
Like, dude, we should like all night this build. Because we had all the parts, we just needed to start assembling.
Like the frame and everything was done for the flat track.
Yeah, we had
section
like
and
everything. Like
good.
we had just gotten the frame back from powder coat.
So just reassembly.
Like we needed to reassemble it and then build the wire harness.
Yeah,
was kind of one of the big processes. The motor had been built and was sitting there ready.
Yeah,
but he's like, I've never raced. Like, I'd rather like.
He was ripping, dude. I remember watching him.
And we talked him into racing. So we were like, dude, we're gonna just overnight this build. So we like worked for like 20 hours straight, got like 90% done, and then finished it out for the next couple of days. We go to the race. He's ripping. He gets more and more comfortable as the days go on.
Yeah.
And then he got a little too comfortable and high-sided and wrecked, right?
Okay.
Nasty high-sided.
And it just pitched him like pretty hard.
Yeah.
And we get him off the track. We get the bike off the track. We're assessing the damage, and the backing plate that holds the carb on had broke.
Okay.
And then it had also broken his shock bolt. It ripped his shock off, and it ripped the bolt in half. And we had to drill the bolt out of the frame, like at the track. Like we didn't have much for tools. And then we had to try and figure out a backing plate. So I like drilled some holes in his backing plate, like zip tied the backing plate to like the push rod tubes so like it wouldn't pop off.
Yeah.
And then
Was it the one that has, the breather bolts?
Yeah.
Is that where it snapped or something like that?
Yeah, it just snapped
Yeah.
at the breather bolts, which, also hold it
Yeah,
to the head,
for
right?
sure.
So it was just kind of loose. So I drilled some holes in it and zip tied it to the push rod tubes because we were like, dude, you got to get back out there.
Yeah.
Like, you were ripping. Like, this was right before the
Gotta
main
hype-
event,
yeah.
and
Right.
I think he was hoping that
he was
wouldn't get it
sore.
fixed.
He was sore.
We wouldn't get it fixed.
Yeah, he was
Right.
he was pretty banged up.
Oh, I'm sure.
But he was like a trooper, dude. He's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, he
let's
was,
get it
man.
going.
That's
And then
tough, man. Those
and
people you probably had your fair share of wrecks and
more
stuff.
than my fair share, yeah. So yeah, that one was. It was just cool because a bunch of dudes rallied together. We needed a shock bolt,
Right.
and
I
we
think
couldn't
Arnie.
find one.
And
then
Arnie. Oh, Arnie. That's where we met Arnie.
That's one of
They-
the first interactions we had with Arnie, and now Arnie's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
He's from Idaho Falls. He actually raced the Mint the day before the actual off-road race
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
a on a
Mint 400, is
Sportster.
that what it is?
The Mint 400.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He had raced it the day before on a Sportster.
Cool.
And then was just there watching the race. He's like
Can you take any bike on that? Is it-
on the Mint.
Yeah. Or is it by
There's
class?
probably
By class.
they have tons of classes, so pretty
Okay.
much whatever you're riding, they'll fit you into a class. But they have like a hooligan
Okay, cool.
class for the Mint,
Yeah.
that your Sportster would fit into.
Right. Well, that's.
So
I mean,
your bike would fit in it.
100%. Like I plan
Dude,
on
that's a
destroying
challenge.
that. It's more of like the let's break this thing a little bit. You know what I mean?
That
Like,
Mint race on the hooligan bikes, if it's a true like Sportster,
Yeah.
I think if I remember right, it's like 4 laps
Okay.
of the loop. Maybe the bikes just do 2 laps if I remember right. But to even just finish 1 lap on that Sportster is kind of a victory
Right.
because it's just so brutal.
Right.
And it's a motorcycle that's not
Meant for
meant to be out there. Something's going to give.
people are doing more on that on enduro stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that's what the majority of the race is. But there is the hooligan class. And I mean, if you were to finish, you'd be a rock star.
Really.
But to even finish a lap is kind of a victory.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Just the terrain
it's
is
just
so
the
gnarly, or
terrain.
just
Yeah,
because of the
just
heat and stuff, or like.
All of
I mean,
the
I'm sure
above.
all the factors
all
play
of the
a
above.
role.
Like
Have you tried this thing?
I have not done. I want to.
Dude, let's
I've
go.
never
You know,
done
and
it.
shoot, we have a new thing we're gonna get on the
Let's go.
bucket list, man.
Let's go for
That's
it.
what I mean. Let's get some Sportster trackers and just.
It's been on the
make it a
bucket list.
thing.
I've wanted to do it. I've
That
never
sounds
done it.
amazing.
Well, like Shook Soda,
Yeah, dude.
Austin, he did the Biltwell 100 on that bike.
Yeah.
and you could do that on your Sportster too.
Right.
The Mint's the Biltwell's a little tamer than the Mint.
Yeah.
The Mint's a legit like off-road race.
Right.
The Biltwell, I don't want to, bash on the Biltwell, but it's just, it's 100 miles, not 400.
Right. That's a big difference, dude.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't do 400 on bikes. I think the 2 laps ends up being like
Wouldn't it like
120
yeah.
miles or something in reality.
Yeah.
But 120 miles of like rocks,
beat.
sand,
Oh, dude. Yeah.
whoops, like
Yeah. No.
anything you can.
Off-road motorcycle, even just. I mean, I've had, taken dirt bike single track. It beats you up. It's
Sure.
your forearms a few minutes in are on fire, in my opinion.
Well, and then you have to last too because you're out
Yeah.
there wrestling around a Sportster that weighs 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can last a lap, that's a victory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
No.
if your arms don't fall off
Right.
before that. So
Yeah, it makes sense, man.
I'd be down to do it, man. We'll put a bike together.
Let's
to
do it. Yeah.
So,
I plan on doing some fun things with that Sportster. It's on the
yeah.
in the back of the mind. You know.
So, I mean, back to, we put Scooter's bike back together. And,
Yeah.
and he went back out there and finished the day. And, I don't think there was anything crazy that we did. We zip tied the backing plate on and,
Mm-hmm.
we had to borrow a drill bit to, and extract that bolt out of the frame, you
Right.
know, all there on the asphalt in the hotel parking lot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No,
just
I
a
get
bunch
that.
of dudes just circling around, borrowing
Yep.
tools, finding parts, and just
I get
the
it.
victory is just getting the bike back on the track.
100%.
and him finishing the day. Like it's just,
It makes him feel bad. It makes him feel good too. You know what I mean?
oh, it was such a special weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was such
Yeah,
a
it was
good
cool.
time. It was kind of like shadowed because one of our buddies that was there was killed in a motorcycle accident the next day.
That's rough.
So it, like
Yeah.
we were on such a high on Saturday,
Well, that's a drastic blow.
and then he was at the race with us.
Yep.
And we all came home on Sunday.
Yeah.
We get a call on Sunday night from his wife that he was hit right down here on the road.
I think he came here to wait. I think he came here to the
He
shop.
came here thinking we were going to come here with all the gear and unload
Yeah.
tonight, and we weren't here.
Right, so
We all just went home.
Right.
And so he just went back home, and then that was it, man. So that whole week, it was like such a high on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And then Sunday night, you get punched in the face.
Yeah, that's a shitty one, too. That's not a fun one to have.
So it was a special week. It was still, I mean, Saturday was a special day. Like, it was
Yeah.
fun, man. And it was Scooter's first race, and he was on such a high, even though he was all
beat
bruised up,
Oh,
and
I'm
scraped
sure,
up,
yeah.
dude. But, you know, we partied that night. Had a
Right.
good time, and it was just like
Shake it off.
the weekend. You know, we always talk about, you know, the trips that things go smooth are the ones you never talk about.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
talk about the roadside breakdowns or whatever it is.
Dude, planning a trip and having a successful, like what you thought it would turn out to be trip. I haven't had it, man.
Never happens.
You know,
Never
like
does.
it's so hard to just get to A to B without any issues if you're in a group. You know what I mean? Especially if you have 4 to
for
8 dudes, you know, and
And if they're on old bikes,
yeah,
good
or if
luck,
they're
dude.
on a bike that's not even theirs, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like there's a bunch of scenario, you know, and I mean that's
But you
that's
would-
part of the fun of it.
that-
You know,
that's
like
just
that's it. You have to
don't
have that.
You would not want it to.
No.
You would not want everybody to get from A to B with no issues, because
Yeah.
it was.
I mean,
you know,
ideally, you know,
would you though? Because the next
Right.
month, the next year, you wouldn't talk about that
Yeah.
ride. You would be like, you would be talking about the other ride where so and so's chain blew off, and this
Yeah.
guy's top end blew up, and this guy's bike lost its brakes, and
Right.
you were stuck on the side of the highway for 4 hours. You know,
100%.
Those are the ones you talk about.
Yeah.
No,
You don't talk about.
75 and sunny.
yeah,
Yeah, nobody talks about. Remember that
true.
one trip when we all got to our destination with no issues? Like, you've never heard that story.
No, I agree. Well, I mean, I think there's a good mix where you have the little things that happen on the trip that don't hinder too much of the trip.
Yeah,
you know what I
they
mean?
definitely can ruin it.
You know? Like I think of my first real, you know, like taking your, you know, your fresh built chopper out on a trip with your homies a couple years ago. There's like 4 of us. You know, we went and blitzed from here all the way up to the Tetons, you know, and looped back.
Sweet.
First big twin chopper. This is 1978 Shovelhead. First, you know, finished the build maybe like 5 days before this trip. And this was my shakedown. You know, I was just kind of like, F it, I'm going. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
ended up cracking the tabs on my oil, you know, on my gas tank. Just, we were off-roading kind of this dirt road and just zip tied the thing. You know, if there's anything I can have in motorcycles, a zip tie sponsor.
ties. Yeah.
Dude,
Real.
sign me up, man. That's the thing that I have.
Gotta
in
have
my-
that in there.
Yeah,
In your
that's the
tool bag.
number one thing in my tool roll is,
Yeah.
is zip ties, metal zip ties, baling wire. You know what I mean? I've had to use that for exhaust issues, or you know, you just learn. You know, but it didn't. You know, you have little breakdown or little things that, you know, you run out of gas because you forget to look. You know, or whatever. You know what I mean? Or something shakes loose and you have this quick, you know, zip tie it back on or whatever. You know what I mean? And that makes it. And you have a good, you know, get there and back, no major issues.
Yeah.
That's an awesome feeling.
That's a
you
good
know what I mean?
trip.
That's a good trip.
Yeah.
You know, and you still have the little things where you're on the side, you know, zip tying stuff back on or whatever. You know what I mean?
The little things. Or maybe a
Yeah.
little bit of weather detour, or, you know, rain, mud,
100%.
whatever it is you're dealing with. That
Yeah.
stuff is just, it just kind of adds to the experience.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. I've gone through some crappy weather before.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, I think it adds to it. You know, I think of the time I came back from Boise, you know, going up through Sawtooth, going up through Idaho City, that loop coming down like Ketchum, that area. I don't know if you guys
Is that
have
20? Is that Highway 20?
I don't know
part
the
of it?
name of the road, but it's a good road.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
through there. I just can't remember the because I was stationed out there in Mount Home.
Yeah.
But I remember, Sawtooth and
kind of up by Stanley.
Yeah. I think it's highway. I think it's that 20.
It's a 20 or 22 or something like that.
One of them. Yeah, man, that's beautiful.
Or the 21. It might be the 21.
Yeah.
Hell, I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Close enough.
No,
But it's
yeah.
that's a badass road.
Yeah.
You know, that's a fun road, and going up, you know, that way it's amazing. You know, and
Yeah.
I've gotten some sleet and stuff, you know, riding through that's the coldest I've ever been in my life, was
Really?
riding back through there, coming back to Logan. I was on my buddy's bike and just froze to death. Like,
Well, that's the kicker. You can't even, when you're running the elevation,
Yeah.
you got to bring all of your gear. It doesn't matter if you're in July,
Yeah.
August. You can get caught in a snowstorm.
Yeah,
in
it
one of
was
those passes,
silly.
man.
And I didn't bring anything. I was just equipped. You know, like I didn't plan for the weather like that. It just happened, and
And that's when it's going to rain and snow
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah, no doubt.
bad. I was taking off everything in the bathroom. You know, what's it called? Gas station to gas station, just putting my shoes and my gloves under the heater and just, you know what I mean? Like trying to warm up station to station. It was silly.
Yep.
It was one of those things, you know, and I think that's like, that's the cool part about motorcycles is, you know, like having those experiences. That's what's driven my full appreciation for every type of bike, you know what I mean? And kind of just getting on the road and trying to, you know, curate those types of experiences, you know, for yourself. You know, one, doing it, you know, if you haven't taken your bike out on a little solo rip, I'm talking a good rip, you know what I mean? Like do a decent, you know, hour, 2 hours on your bike, you know, solo. That's you know, at a quiet time, like that's a real thing. You know, you start to learn what you really like in this stuff, you know what I mean?
Well, I think, you know, you kind of have to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. I think a lot of people are so used to being comfortable all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
That, you know, the
easy
idea
nowadays.
of breaking down on the side of the highway or riding through a rainstorm or a snowstorm and having to stop at every gas station to try and warm up, like, for some people that makes the experience, and for some other people will prevent them from ever doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what,
yeah,
you know, like I got into you know, kind of into Harleys because of my dad.
right.
But my dad is the type that if it's not between 75 and 80 and clear skies, he is not going out.
Fair weather.
He does not want to be uncomfortable. He doesn't want to be, if it's 90, it's too hot. If it's 65, it's too cold.
Right.
And, you know, if there's not a close parking spot, he doesn't want it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and that's just who he is.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, like we did our camp out last year and we rode through the rain and the mud and we were getting stuck and tipping bikes over, and it was like way out of our comfort zone. We
Right.
were cold, we were tired, we were worn out from picking motorcycles up all night, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it was a blast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was such a good time.
Well, motos and camping go well together, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just one of those
For the right
things.
people,
Yeah.
right? And there's certain
Definitely.
people that just, to them, it sounds insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever talked to people and they're like, that just sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And you're just like, it's not terrible. It's kind of fantastic,
Yeah,
really.
it's freeing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, but I guess that's what separates us, you know,
Yeah.
better or worse. I don't know. Maybe we're insane.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
a little. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm on that edge, you know.
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
kind of have to if you're going like, you know, to the wall in these things, you know.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I think it flips a switch when you kind of become a little bit obsessive over it. You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
I mean? Like, it's not everybody thinks. I've recognized that not everybody's going to think or accept the way I, you know, my take on motorcycles.
Right.
Well, you know, and from the beginning, like I said, I was influenced because I saw a movie, you know, of people building motorcycles, and I thought it was cool, you know, and I thought it was the coolest way to do it, you know, and that's just what hit with me. And, you know, as you start your own journey of getting out and cutting your first, you know, buying a bike that runs, stock bike, whatever, and cutting it in half for no reason. Dude, what the hell are you doing, dog? You know what I mean? Like, you sound retarded. You know, it's not something people do. You know what I mean? And nowadays, it's kind of a, you know, it's a hard thing to do. You know, but it's one of those things that, you know, like you're either committed, you know, that's a commitment thing. You know, you
It
take
is.
that jump where it's like, dude, there's no going back once you cut a frame in half. You know what I mean?
There's no turning back.
There's no turning back. And you only know that when you do it for your first time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's changed my entire life and how I even view, everything. You know?
And if you listen, if you were to write it down, like it sounds,
Yeah.
there's no logic to it.
No, dude.
You know what I mean?
Ride a bike that doesn't have a front brake. You shift with your hand. You put your clutch in. You live in a hilly, like in the mountains or whatever. And
Yeah. Like none of it makes any
70
sense.
years old, like you can't find things for it. You know what I mean? Like you have to YouTube 50 times to try and, Pacific Mike's your boy. You know what I mean? Like it's just what it is, Like it's it's been such a process for me, and I've met so many cool people within it. Salt Lake has a lot of insane builders.
Yeah.
Insane builders, like I was introduced, and started getting into it and saw Andy and Jeff and all these cats that are so talented. You know what I mean? Great dudes. And, and just in general, you meet Cody Weber, I started, awesome dude, he's just really awesome people that will help you and are putting themselves out to like try and just help someone get a bike on the road. You know what I mean? Like that's what it boils down to, is just getting bikes on the road, and I think that's been the coolest part of like trying to, one, learn how to do it, and then two, be somebody that's, trying to share, what you're learning and
kind of adding to that community, putting back out there what you're taking from it.
100%. Like we all pull from each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there shouldn't be, the gatekeep, you have to earn, you have to put in the work and the hours to,
Sure.
And I believe full-heartedly, you have to work hard to do this stuff.
For sure.
Like if you don't work hard for it, I don't think you should have it then.
You
know
don't
what I mean?
deserve it. Yeah. You
And
can't just buy it and experience,
Well, that's the thing. You can buy the thing. You can get into and buy whatever you want to buy if you have the dough. You know what I mean? For me, it's been a hustle of, flipping bikes.
But the experience isn't the same.
No, not at all. But that's all personal. I think everybody goes through their own, personal experience with how they relate and how they move within their own motorcycle experience, and that's the cool part is, we get to share that. And I think when you start sharing it and you start, getting to a level where you're more confident in what you're doing and start helping, that's when you build the community and you build, people that support you, like I think of how many people have helped support me within like my own, putting motorcycle stuff out there, like from, getting a shirt or like just supporting a photo or a print or whatever, like that stuff's awesome. It's insane. I would have never expected that at all. So I'm super grateful for everything, Salt Lake and just people in general have given me within motorcycles.
Yeah.
That's a cool experience,
Yeah.
I think that comes from a lot of like the event stuff, like we need that kind of stuff, like going back to your show that you just did 2 weeks ago. I mean, I don't know the last time Utah has done something that, in depth on just general motorcycle culture and general motorcycles here,
That was the idea.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And it was it turned into, mine and Jordan and Levi's. It was kind of a passion project. We wanted to bring, me and Jordan have traveled quite a bit over the last few years and gone to a bunch of shows and seen that type of stuff happening around the country. And we're just like, we want to just bring that here. When we were approached with the idea of just, originally that idea was supposed to just be like just a little gathering of motorcycles, just a small display of bikes. That's all it was supposed to be in the beginning. And we're like, let's try and make something special here. And I think we achieved it.
Oh, for sure, man.
And we have plans of making it bigger and better.
Yeah.
And making it a spot that highlights people like yourself.
Right.
People that are passionate about what they're building and what they're doing and where they're going and their photos and and their skill set and all of the things that go along with it.
Right.
And also all of the artists. That was a big part of what we wanted to do is allow not just the people that build the bikes, but also the people that paint the motorcycles
100%.
and take the photos and shoot the videos, and the tattooers and the pinstripers and all these other people that help make all this stuff happen, give them an opportunity to show off their skills, and it turned out cool. I'm still super stoked on it.
I'm sure you should be elated. Like,
So,
it was insane.
Excited and already for next year. You know what I mean? Like, can't wait.
Yeah.
So before we close up, like, what do you have planned for this year as far as trips or rides?
Yeah, I'm trying to dial in some bikes right now.
Uh-huh.
That's my big priority right now, is just getting
the
some
bikes
things ready for a run. I'm trying to go do Washington this August, that I'm excited about. Trying to shoot a lot more photos.
Really?
Doing that. October, I'm going to do a little pop-up, little gallery down at Salty Motorworks.
Okay.
Yep, October 12th. Just a little pop-up, focusing on a few photographer friends that I'm really inspired by, and kind of collaborate on making, some art, essentially, trying to focus on prints, and have, people that I'm really inspired by, and some of the cool builds. There's a few builds that I'm going to try and have on display, and all different by, just try and do a little hangout, essentially, and just try and look at, I think, printing, I'm stoked on prints because, one, having a tangible photo that you take, it's just nostalgic for me, and I think creates some space, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about that. That's what I'm trying to focus on.
When's that pop-up show happening?
October 12th, yeah.
Okay, so you have a date?
Yep, October 12th.
Where can people find info on that?
Just on my Instagram, Shedcyco, yeah.
Okay.
I'll be posting and doing some things on that.
We'll put all that stuff in our show notes, too.
Cool, man. Yeah, so that's the big thing, is trying to focus on that and really get on the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the big focus, is
Get
start
to Washington.
shaking. Yeah, shake down, get to Washington.
I think the photo thing is cool, because I agree. It's photos have changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I have thousands of photos on my phone, but there's something to be said for a print hanging on the wall.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
look at stuff up
I mean,
on yours, yeah.
And it was one of the reasons that we had the photo contest at the show.
Yeah.
And, kind of showcase that stuff. I mean, I don't want to say it's a lost art. I don't think it's lost. I mean, but it's maybe dying or just not. I don't know. But there's just something cool about a print.
I think so too. I mean,
that captures a moment. I mean, we had to sit down and kind of judge and pick the finalists for our photo contest.
Yeah.
And even that in itself was a cool experience, because we had about 40 people submit photos, and each one of them could submit up to 5 photos. So we had to thumb through a handful of photos that these people had submitted, and to kind of flip through them all and get everybody's take on motorcycling and what it is to them. It's cool to see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I dig that. So definitely would love to come down and check out your little pop-up show.
That'd be cool.
And see it, because, I mean, just goes back to, the community and supporting each other in what we do. And
100%.
So, yeah. Do you got anything else, Jay?
I don't, man.
Right on, man. Well,
I appreciate you guys having me on, man. This has
thanks,
been cool.
Parker, man. I appreciate you running up and, just being a part of the show and coming up and doing the podcast. I mean, it means a lot. Yeah. And sharing some of that passion, because it bleeds over to this side of the table. Like I said, it helps us, stay passionate.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
Cool.